Sean, welcome to Manufacturing Happy Hour. Unfortunately, we can't be having this conversation in person today, but if we were having this discussion over a drink, where might that be? It could be anywhere in the world. Paint the picture.
So you're gonna get a biased answer from me. So for the first time in my life, I went to the Florida Keys this weekend, visiting some friends, and didn't realize how beautiful it is. So you've heard about Key West. Maybe it gets a little crazy, but if you get a little out of Key West, fantastic beach bars. Like, they have these tiki hut looking places with wonderful rummy, fruity drinks, but they also have excellent beers. So that's probably what I'd be drinking: a beer at a tiki bar, looking over blue water in Florida. That's, but again, recency bias. I was just doing that 2 days ago, so that's where I'd be.
That's A-okay with me. Nothing about having a drink, talking about manufacturing in sunny Florida right now while it's 9 degrees where I'm at sounds like a bad thing. So I'm all for it. So, well, hey, I'm interested to get your we're having a drink answer to this question. Because, you work for Bright Machines, you have a lot of insights across the industry in general. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today. But one of the things that sticks out when I see something about Bright Machines is software-driven manufacturing, right? How do you define that, or how do you describe that term to someone as if you're having a drink with them at a bar in the Florida Keys?
Sure. Yeah. So software-defined manufacturing. If you look at much of the transition manufacturers have gone through in the last, let's say 20 years, really, where you're trying to use data in a way that is more meaningful and make your production process more efficient and make yourself more profitable, and all the things manufacturers are trying to do with more data, getting past whiteboards and spreadsheets and into actual data. Much of the journey for many manufacturers goes from, I have this hardware and now I'm going to try to get some software I can throw on top of it and try to figure out how I can get stuff out of my production line that helps me run it better. Software-defined manufacturing is the other way around. So instead of if everything were greenfield, if you were to say, I know I have to build this many widgets, but what's the best way to do it? Using software to really define the flow, define the tools you have, but really from the beginning thinking about the data. Because the data is, we now know, probably the most important part. It's the thing that's going to make you more competitive, more sustainable, keep your operations going when the next unforeseen thing happens. That data is so important. The software in place first, helping determine, your design for manufacturing, the tools you use, that's the real value. And not everyone can do that, right? You've already got your production going. So the idea is then to have a partner that created their solutions with software-defined manufacturing in mind. And that's kind of what Bright Machines is doing. It's like you get a greenfield solution for your solution, even though you're up and running and have been for maybe 50 years. But the idea is we're not just cobbling together a variety of solutions. We have a full stack that was designed from software first to get the data, to get the right information in the beginning. So that's, in a simple form, that's kind of the idea.
I think that's perfect, because I've actually never thought of it as simply as you just described it before. Just making that 180 of thinking, hey, we've got a bunch of machines on the plant floor. How do we put software on top of it, right? What you just said was, hey, you got to start thinking software first, right? Software-defined manufacturing, and then figure out everything after that. I've got another question to piggyback off of that then. How many people in the greater manufacturing world, this is a world according to Sean answer, okay, how many people do you think are starting to think of things this way? Are most people still thinking machines first, software second?
That's a great question. So there's some very vocal, very forward people that have been talking quite a bit about, again, the data first, the software first. But I would bet the majority of manufacturers are still kind of dealing in the reality of, I have all this hardware and now I need to try to bring it to the next level. So I'd probably say it's 30-70, right? 30% of people are really thinking, no, I understand the data is most important. Now that 30% is probably leading industries. Those are the folks that honestly have taken a leap forward and are kind of passing some of their competitors, because there's so much value there. There's gold in those hills, right? There's so much value in that data that if when you get it, when you have the real information you need to run your business, you start making more money. You start being more competitive, and so that 30% or whatever that number actually is, of really kind of people who embraced software first, or some approach to data first, they're taking the lead, and they're out speaking more, and they're more visible. So you'll see that in the industry leaders in the world. So, but we run into a lot of manufacturers that are still struggling with how to keep up, and they do have a whiteboard at the end of the line, and someone who tallies it up with a pencil, and they're doing the best they can. But it's just harder. It's a different playing field when you're competing against the big data folks.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That intuitively I follow along with that, and I have a feeling these topics will come back up in the conversation. But hey, we're sitting on the beach, and I'm just getting to know you for the first time. So I want to
Sure.
get to hear a little bit about your story first. And if I look at let's say your LinkedIn profile, I maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I saw a career arc where you've had an incredible career in the electronics industry in many ways, and I feel like you started in customer support. You have a lot of business development experience in between, and now you're back in the customer success realm. Did I see that right? Or tell us a little bit about your career journey.
Yeah, completely right. So, what you don't see on there is that my first real job of note, the thing that actually got me into manufacturing, something I never thought I would end up in, was when I was in college. I started working at M&M Mars. I was working at a candy factory, and part time, and on plant shutdowns. And it was the first time I saw real automation. And again, this is 1989. I'm aging myself. So 1989. So real automation was a lot of really manual conveying and just sort of material management kind of stuff. But to me, it was magic. It was like Willy Wonka. It was like up in the ceilings, and huge flows, just bringing materials. Again, they're making candy. But so huge flows of materials. And I fell in love, right? So I fell in love with manufacturing, but really automation. Like it was, uh, far more interesting, far more exciting than I thought it was going to be. Mind you, I'm in a factory in Hackettstown, New Jersey. It's not the most beautiful place, but to me it was, right. So to me it was just amazing, all this automation. So when I got out of college, my first thought was I'm going to get into something sort of techie, but I want to get back to automation. So I started with IBM, but wherever they'd put me, sort of, and I ended up in a sales mode, sales role, or salesy roles, and I didn't love it. Like, it was interesting. I was dealing with customers, but I still didn't feel like I was getting into the business. So I took a jump to Philips Electronics, got into surface mount automation, and I wanted to work with customers on a more meaningful level. So I got into product management. So I was sort of the services aftermarket product manager, which ended up being really just a more professional approach to customer success. And I loved it, right? So I started to get into the customer shoes, learning the challenges they had, and really managing the solutions my company was providing in a way that made the customer benefit, make them more successful. And that's, and that to me was the most meaningful part of the business. Except I have a big mouth. So I was a product manager. So I was creating all these what I thought were excellent solutions that my sales people weren't selling. And I kept going to the sales manager and saying, hey, you're something wrong with your sales guys. They can't sell this stuff. It's perfect for customers. What's wrong with them? And the sales guy said, hey, I'm tired of hearing this. You're a sales guy too now. And so I got put back into kind of the go-to-market side of the business, which by now, with the customer background, became the same thing. So I realized that if you approach sales from a standpoint of customer success, what we call it now, really, but really at the time, just supporting the customer, making sure you're really thinking about the customer first, you're going to do really well at sales. And so then I spent 15 or so years, Philips and Panasonic, selling automation on the go-to-market side. I got back into Bright, really, yeah. I was having trouble with the kind of the speed at which some large, wonderful tech companies were moving to bring real solutions to customers. And I wanted to find a company that was more focused about moving fast and really delivering real value. And that was Bright. So Bright brought me in. And from day one, I was able to do both the go-to-market side and the customer success side. And then being a scale up, once we got big enough, I could switch over to customer success full time. And so to me, it does look like an arc of customer success into go-to-market and then back to customer success. But it's the same thing. Like to me, it's always been the same thing. I've never been a hit and run salesperson that just kind of once it gets the order and go. I want to build the relationship. I want to make sure I'm delivering so much value the customer has no reason to ever talk to anyone else. So they're going to keep buying solutions from us because it helps them. And that approach to customer success to me is sales. Sales is that approach to customer success. It's the same thing. But it looks like I dipped into two different job functions, but to me, it's all making sure your customers are wildly successful with the solutions you provide them, and the money is a byproduct. They'll keep giving you the money, you'll keep giving them solutions, but just make sure they're winning with what you've given them.
We're going to come back to customer success a little later
Yep.
there, but there was something at the start of the answer that is very important that I think I heard Dave and Vlad from the Manufacturing Hub podcast asking you about, which is you worked at Mars, you worked at a candy factory. I mean, there's a little bit of a how it's made element to this show. What can you share what candy you were making, or what candy you got to see made while you were there?
Oh yeah, I mean at the time, so again, dating myself, the Hackettstown, New Jersey M&M Mars facility was the only facility in the world making M&Ms at the time. There's more now, but so they made massive amounts of M&Ms, and again, small town boy from New Jersey, the how it's made element was the most magical thing, because just the sheer volume of the single product, right? So they do peanut and they did in the plain, but so two products, but they had to just do it in so much volume. So it was, like I said, like Willy Wonka. There was massive tanks of freshly made liquid chocolate, and there was huge hoppers of just the M&M spinning to get the shine on them, and just to watch them all pour out. And you could fill a tractor trailer with just the amount of product that would come out on like an hourly basis blew my mind. And there was times like those cleanup jobs where you'd have to go into a room where there was a spill, and of course they'd throw it's food, you got to throw it away, or they'd actually make it for farm feed. But you'd be up to your waist in M&Ms with a snow shovel, shoveling candy, and it was just like, this is great. This is the best playground and the most wonderful thing. But yeah, it was just M&Ms, but for the world at the time. So huge volumes.
That's so cool. I can just picture at least some part of the process where it's probably not a literal waterfall, but just seeing this massive rainbow of M&M colors just flowing through. At least that's
Kinda
how I
like
envision
that.
it.
It's kind of like that, yeah. So it's
That's so cool. That's so
wonderful.
cool. I'm sure someone out there is wondering, do they color them first and then like they all come together at some point? That's at least one thing that's on my mind.
See, I'm trying to see. I guess I probably didn't sign an NDA. This was 30 years ago, but I don't know how secret this is. No, there's a separate hopper for each color. They add the color into these. It looks like a giant cement mixer, essentially spinning to add the color, and then of course add the shine. And then they've put it through a tiny typewriter where you hit the M on it. That's not true. But no, it goes into various colors, and then it gets blended together in the right proportions. At the time, it was very manual. A lot of quality control was just people who had the right idea for, no, that color looks a little off. Like there wasn't really much of a scale. There's just these experts on color, these experts on mix. There's too much of the brown instead of not enough of the green. They would just know by eye as they went to the bigger batches. I'm sure it's now all automated with with AI and vision, but at the time it was just people who've been making candy for 30 years and knew what it looked like.
Well, I'm sure there are some changes to that process from 30 years ago, but I appreciate you giving that. I'll say that surprise behind the scenes a little bit into that. Yeah. But now for something completely different. Let's talk about reshoring. Let's talk. It's probably one of the bigger 180s I've made on the show. You know, I've got a very general question to start it off, and I'd love your quick answer to this. Why is reshoring front of mind when it comes to staying ahead in manufacturing today?
Yeah. So again, I think and it's hard to give a quick answer on something you're passionate about, but I'll do my best. So I think in the past there were sort of broad stroke approaches to where you build, right? It was sort of like everyone thinks it's a good idea to go here, so we'll go here, and then now it seems like it's going over here, so we'll go over here. I think what's happening in reshoring is, an effect of this, but what's happening is manufacturers are thinking it through, like what makes the most sense for the customer base I'm trying to reach, my supply chain that I have. And quite often the answer is, yeah, you should build where your customers are. It's better for the world, better for the environment. It's more sustainable. It's more, you're rocked less by interferences, and you get more feedback directly from your market. So it makes a lot of sense. You're not just chasing the cheapest manufacturing dollar based on a spreadsheet. You're looking at everything else. It's supply chain, it's government, it's macro. But so it's really a manufacturer taking the time to dig in and say what makes the most sense for my business to ensure that we're going to be able to meet our market, meet our sales goals, deliver what we have to do. So it's more intelligent. It's a more intelligent approach that often results in reshoring as the right answer. There's some industries where it might still make sense to have a super center in a low cost part of the world, and I'm sure that'll happen for some manufacturers. But for the vast majority, they're seeing that when you factor in sustainability, especially, reshoring to where your market is makes a lot of sense.
So a follow up, maybe to get more specific around that question is, I feel like flexible manufacturing, or I'm sure this ties into software defined manufacturing as well. Let's say we're reshoring here to the U.S., right? How do flexible solutions play into a reshoring strategy?
It's a huge enabler. So when labor cost is a big difference, right? So when you reshore, you may deal with, of course, higher labor costs or other costs that are higher on paper. You mitigate that in a few ways, but one very powerful tool to mitigate the difference in labor costs, a higher labor cost, is if you can change over. If you're flexible with your hardware systems, which in the past automation was very inflexible. Sometimes you'd have huge customized lines that could only pump out a volume of product. With flexible automation, flexible manufacturing, you can build lot size 10 of something and switch over to the next product and the next product, which means your higher priced workers are more effective. They're more sort of they're utilized in a better way. They can build higher margin products. They can build a bigger set of products, but it gives the company, the manufacturing company, a three-dimensional playing field to go on, as opposed to just cost. Just cost. So we have to hit it with volume. We're going to do that somewhere low cost. Now you can say no to meet all of our market demands. We're going to build 20 different SKUs on the same manufacturing floor using our uh, higher paid employees, who, by the way, are probably happier with their jobs and making a better living and all those other things. So, I mean, it's like I said, it helps in a lot of ways. But the flexible manufacturing is the key. We still have rigid, fixed manufacturing lines that they can only build one product. It's very hard to do that closer to your market. You do almost have to look at how do we get a super center somewhere to supply the world.
So, for the manufacturing leaders out here listening to this, many of whom, probably about 85% of our audience is based here in the US, for those folks that are going through their own reshoring journeys right now, what's your advice to them? What are the key areas to focus on? I've seen upskilling and reskilling playing to this strategy as well as manufacturing. What's your candid answer, call to action around this?
Yeah, so to me, the world has changed so much in support of reshoring and upskilling your workforce is a different world right now. Meaning, there's help out there. There's so much help out there. So there's local organizations, there's community colleges, there's all the jobs groups from of various names in various places in the U.S. that have these networks of sort of educational systems. So for small manufacturers, you can typically find a local chamber of commerce or a local community college or college that can train often for free some of your employees that need some fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of electronic manufacturing, the fundamentals of even automation process that that network didn't exist 20 years ago, for instance. I mean, there was really almost a big focus away from that kind of education in the U.S. When much of the manufacturing jobs left. So now for manufacturers, as you look at your reshoring journey, don't assume you're not going to be able to find experienced or trained workers. You can, and for your existing workforce, you can get them trained in ways that are much more affordable than they had been in the past. And that's also a game changer. It's chicken egg. As manufacturing comes back, more of these wonderful solutions will grow. But we're at a sweet spot now where it seems like there's almost more infrastructure than there is people taking advantage of it. So there's for again, for manufacturers that want to step up the skills of their people to help them succeed more at their jobs and be more happy in their jobs. Just check your chamber of commerce, check your local community college. I can almost guarantee 3 phone calls in, you'll find someone who's willing to train your people at a very affordable price. And again, then you've got a more talented workforce, more content workforce, happier at their jobs because they're doing more interesting things. And that's hugely beneficial. Yeah, it's a game changer, I think, in the U.S. right now.
So, speaking of game changing things in the US, reshoring, reskilling, that's not the only area that's showing tangible change, right? Another area that I've seen you talk about quite a bit in articles and on podcasts is sustainability. And I don't know why it's been such a big topic just this year here in 2023 on Manufacturing Happy Hour. I've seen it come up in every interview we've done lately. Not that we didn't talk about it before, but it's just been such a trending topic on the show. I want to ask you a few questions around sustainability. And I think the first one, kind of going back to where we started, why is software-defined manufacturing a key part to sustainability? Let's weave it into what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. If you look at what server farms did 15 years ago. So the whole idea with a server farm, of course, is that you've got hundreds and hundreds of servers working in conjunction with each other. If something happens to one of them or 10 of them, the service that's provided doesn't change. Meaning, there's the sprinkler system goes on, it kills 10% of the servers. All that happens is that the data then gets routed through the functional servers. The users of the web service or whatever else that's coming out of it don't really feel much of a difference. It might be a little slower, might be a little glitchy, but they're still going to stay up. So the idea around sustainability and software-defined manufacturing is that you can define your manufacturing that way as well. So you're building, widgets or radios or whatever that's coming off your manufacturing line, your floor, with the data the right way. If something happens, the sprinkler system goes on and kills 10% of your manufacturing lines, you can just route your manufacturing to other lines. It's flexible enough that you can go from building widget A on this line today to widget B tomorrow because the widget B line is down for some reason. It's the same kind of idea. So you build that sustainability in your product design and in your manufacturing floor so that when things happen, and manufacturers know all kinds of things happen. That's the nature of the job, is you wake up every day and go, what's going to happen today? And you don't know. You're going to walk in and there could be, some people are out sick, or the supplier can't send these parts, but he sent these and these are wrong. And there's always things that happen with software that you prepare for that. Flexible manufacturing and flexible automation that you can adjust to that. No problem. We'll just shift over to this line. We'll shift over to this product. We'll put our workers on this function today and the next function tomorrow because they're trained and ready to do that. So I mean, that's the sustainability focus, and it's no wonder why it's a big topic. The last 2 years have sort of gobsmacked everyone. It was the biggest, interruption in manufacturing in my career. And if you look historically, outside of world wars, it's right up there with things that interrupted manufacturing and wasn't foreseeable. So, for a global supply chain and disruption, smart companies are all thinking about sustainability now. When the next thing we can't plan for happens, how do we plan for it? That's that's the
Yeah.
way.
On that note, I saw you mention this before as well around, hey, reusing and recycling, for example, in sustainability can be used to create new revenue streams. So, hey, opportunities for companies to build out new revenue streams by being sustainable. I'd love to maybe hear where you've seen this play out in practice. If you have a specific story, a general story to talk about, hey, this is how the stuff people are making can be repurposed. So that way, maybe the supply chain impacts aren't hurting someone as much, or maybe you're just opening up a new revenue stream that you didn't think about before. I'd love to hear some of your stories from the field in this regard.
Sure, I'll give you one general one that was given to me years ago, and then I'll give you a specific example. But so early in my sales career, I went to as an automotive man. It was Delphi. I went to Delphi Automotive in Kokomo, Indiana. It was just so long ago, it doesn't matter. And I was explaining at the time we were selling surface mount equipment, and I explained how our machines would last 7 years. And this guy stopped me, and he was an older gentleman, and he was from Kokomo, and he said, "You have to understand, we're farmers at our heart, some of us, and the way we look at things is the way we look at a tractor." And he's like, "My grandfather got a tractor 100 years ago. It plowed the field. It did everything it was supposed to do for many, many years. We fixed it when it broke. We kept it running. When that tractor stops working, we're going to lift it up on blocks. We're still going to use the motor. We're going to put a belt on it. And we're going to use that to run our mill. And we're going to start breaking down wheat into flour with it. When that stops working, well, we're still going to use it." And he named another way they would use it. And at the very end, we're going to put it over and plug a hole in our fence with it. And for 300 years, this tractor is going to be useful to us on the farm. He goes, "That's what we expect from our manufacturing. Like that, we expect the hardware we bring in to be useful in more than one way, in multiple ways, to be reconfigurable, to be flexible." Super interesting concept. It was back in the 90s, and to me, it kind of was like, it's a great idea. Well, manufacturers now are still sort of operating that way, right? So when you invest in manufacturing equipment, for most manufacturers, it's not viable to have something that just punches out the one product, a million a day, every day for 2 years till the model type changes, and then we throw it away. That's not practical. So we have real manufacturers, name brand companies that are looking for manufacturing to order. I want a production line that I can build one of Model A, two of Model 3, or B, 10 of Model C, and then back to Model A again, real time. And that is the highest form of reusing and recycling your manufacturing equipment. It's doing it on a daily basis for 20 years, where any model type that comes in, we can just shift over, no problem. The NPI process is very quick. The changeover time is incredibly quick. And we're just going to keep reusing this line in real time over and over again. So I mean, that's the highest form of how manufacturers are addressing sort of reusability now. But there's also just the whole, the traditional retooling of a factory is now, something most manufacturers really want to avoid. When I put something on my floor, I want to be able to change some tooling, change some software, and have it do something else, and avoid chucking this in a landfill in 5 years. And that's the simpler, more practical way that most manufacturers are now thinking about reusability and sustainability. And of course, when they go through their purchasing models and they decide they're going to buy this thing, to know there's a resale value is revolutionary. That they could sell their automation equipment to another company in 5 years, that's a game changer, because now suddenly there's residual value. That doesn't exist with customized automation. It just doesn't. You can pull some computers off, you could pull a conveyor belt out, but customized fixtures only build the widget they were built to make. So that's it's a whole different focus on companies that are looking to be more profitable, looking to be more long lasting in their investment. It's a requirement now almost.
So I like the pragmatic stories and tips and background you've given us around sustainability, before that reshoring. There's one other area I wanted to dive into today before we wrap things up, and that's you're the vice president of customer success at Bright Machines. And I think that's when I saw your title, I'm like, this is something we have to talk about because we talked a little bit about before I hit record. For over 10 years, I've been in the manufacturing industry. And for 5.5 of those years, I lived out in the Bay Area. I got to see customer success be an integral part of software companies while I was there. But I feel like customer success is kind of a new thing here in manufacturing a little bit. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. How does a manufacturer stand up a customer success organization? And maybe even before that, in a quick answer, like, what is customer success? There might be
Sure.
someone listening to this that's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Sure. So, yeah, at the highest level, customer success is really just an increased focus on what it takes for the customer, the end user who's trusted you with their money to take your solution. You, at the very highest level, just ensure that customer knows how to operate it, knows how to use it, that they're getting as much value out of that again, in my case, automation line as possible. I want my customers to be filthy, stinking rich because they made a decision to partner with Bright Machines. Like that at the heart, basic level, that's what it is. And it's true. The concept of customer success versus customer support started in Silicon Valley. It started with software, because software products tend to be new and cutting edge. They tend to have their own, in the past, their own specific user interface and way of working. So if you really want someone to embrace your software, to buy it again, to recommend it to their friends, you need to sit down with them and say, Chris, you now have this software. What's going to take for you to be comfortable with it? How am I going to make sure you're going to use it? Do you know how to do you know how to put it on your computer? Do you know how to sign in? Do you know how to get to all the features you wanted? And then you don't just walk away. You stay with that customer. You check in periodically. You're on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. You're still using it. How's it working? You build into the software features and know how often you're using it. Make sure you're using it often, and you're not afraid to use it. Things like that. On the manufacturing side, and historically, you'd have a big body of people that were doing manufacturing for a long time. So when you sold them a product, a manufacturing, even automation product, there's people there that knew how to use it, and you could pretty much drop it off with some manuals and this historically, and a little bit of training, and then the person would use it. And then you'd go into customer support mode. If the customer called, so the machine broke, or I don't know how to do this one thing, then you help them. Well, now we're into software defined manufacturing, and we're into a different world where there's not as many people, humans, doing manufacturing jobs. So that whole body of experience and really sort of tribal knowledge that existed 20 years ago in the U.S. isn't as great now. There's a decade or two where not a lot of young people went into manufacturing. So that body of knowledge is less. So to approach manufacturing now with a customer success mindset is really just to recognize that the market has changed a bit, that there's not as many manufacturing gurus around as there used to be, and that the automation is more advanced. There's more bells and whistles, there's more features. So let's not assume anyone knows exactly how to use it. So you go on, you approach onboarding the product like you would a software product. We're delivering this. Here's what it looks like. Here's where it's going to be. Here's how it operates. What can we do for you to make sure you're as successful with it as possible? And for some customers, that's full service. We're going to be on site and ramp up and train you for a long time. Other customers, it's we'll do all the work for them for an extended period of time, so the customer won't focus as much on training, for instance. But it's just determining what's the right mix of solutions for that customer and then staying with them, periodically, every month, every quarter at least. How are things going? I see you're running the line at 98%. Would you like to be at 99? You happy with 98? I mean, it's a different, more hands-on approach to the manufacturing world now, to sort of embrace them a little more and make sure they're ready to succeed with your solution.
So this is as much a personal question coming from someone that spent most of their career as an account manager in manufacturing. And this actually goes back to something you mentioned very early on in the interview, where you said, hey, at the end of the day, whether I was in business development and sales or in customer support, customer success, I mean, we're at every function, we're trying to help make the customer successful, right? But where I see maybe industrial companies struggle, whether it's manufacturers, OEMs, distributors, what have you, is with this new thing called customer success. I think it's creating some confusion on, hey, what's my role, right? Because I think there are a lot of sales folks out there that have spent their career taking on a lot of customer success functions,
Absolutely.
a lot of that reactive stuff,
Yep.
when maybe they should be in a role that's more just proactive. Like, I'm looking for the next new customer, the next new account, right? So I guess my question then is, what's the right way to make sure you're segmenting between what sales and business development and account management should be doing versus what customer success should be doing? Because I feel like that's where many people out there listening today might be in their journey right now.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and you're right. That's one of the kind of decisions, you have to make with your customer facing teams. And the truth is, there's more than one right answer. So at the end of the day, to me, the best answer is internal communication from the company. So now within Bright, for instance, so the way we manage it is we put together account teams. So there's an account executive, account owner for every one of our customers, but there's also a customer success person responsible. And really, it's a matter of communication. Who's got the ball? With Bright, we figured it out, pretty clearly where the lines are. I know with other companies and other products, it may be a little more challenging, but the idea really is to make sure the customer is best supported. And so for account executives in a lot of industries, they've got the ability to raise a flag. They can say, "Hey, the customer's really upset. Things are going on," but they may not have direct access to the professional services team or the exact right person in software that has seen that bug before. So you don't want to put too much on their plate with regards to managing the proactive customer relationship things, but you want them involved. So for me, the customer success person should be taking the lead on sort of the proactive communication on performance of the line, the proactive check on whether they're happy or not, all of those things. The salesperson or account executive, they're there to be at the high level. They can raise that flag. They're also there at the meetings. They're aware of everything that's going on. They don't have to get down in the mud of technical kind of discussions when they happen, but they can be there for an escalation path if they need to. So I mean, it's a team. It's got to be a team. You don't want to build a silo where this guy has aftermarket and this guy has the land, as the landing order, and then that's it. To me, that's dangerous. That happens at a lot of companies, because then the customer gets two companies they're working with, and suddenly the relationship is not as intimate. There's not as much cohesive messaging, and so it's kind of a mess. So again, for companies that want to embrace this, and I recommend they all do, it's just internal communication. You just make sure who's got the ball. And if you want your account executives to be the customer success person, that can work. It can work, but then they've got to be more in tune to the organization, and they're probably going to do less prospecting and less, they're going to be more of a farmer than a hunter. But that can work. It just depends on your customer base.
That's a great answer, because you gave some specific things people can be focused on, right? And I think one of the biggest things I heard you just say was, hey, you got to define what the roles are, right? Because there's not necessarily one way to do it. There are probably best practices out there, but if you define the roles and you have the communication and you continue to work together, right? You don't want customer success and sales being in different silos. There are a number of different ways you can make it work. I love that answer. So, well, hey, you've given us a lot of great advice throughout this conversation. I've got one last big kind of overarching question before we do a little wrap up here. But we went from reshoring to sustainability to customer success. Heard your story. Software defined manufacturing was a big part of our conversation throughout today. One more world according to Sean question is, how are you seeing technology and, whether it's machine learning, AI, computer vision, cloud? I mean, how are you seeing this shift the way manufacturing operates today? Maybe it's another story, maybe it's a general observation, but just, I'd love to hear something that just kind of puts a wrapper around what we talked about today.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I do see I see a major shift kind of happening now, and for the last 10 years or so, lots of discussion around Industry 4.0, and then digitalization, and then AI and machine learning, and lots of products that have come out. What's happened over the last, again, 2 years, and again, I think this has a lot to do with the world supply chain problems we've had, is that manufacturers are now sort of saying we need something that works. Like there's all these companies that have buzzy words that sound a lot alike, and they've got products that are kind of cool, but give me something that works and that I can approach without completely turning my business upside down. Like, how do I get into this? And what you're seeing now is there are solutions. There's companies like Bright Machines and other companies out there that can give you an approachable solution where you can start with automation. You can start with the data from your line, and then go from there with things that work. So again, I'm not saying products in the past didn't work, but there's a lot of focus on point solutions as opposed to kind of full stack platform solutions. And I think now what manufacturers are providing, or what solution providers are providing, is the full stack solution that works. You can put it on the floor relatively easy. The training's relatively easy, common user interface, plays nice with other things, and it's producing value. And then what's happening from there is we're seeing a lot of customers that are saying, okay, AI, machine learning, that sounds great, but how can this automation system tell me when I'm starting to build defects and then fix those defects in real time? That's meaningful, and so don't just show me better graphs and data. Show me a solution that actually stops me from building bad product. Show me a solution that can trace my bad product down to the reference designator on any part in the process, and I can go back to that supplier. But it's got to work, and it's got to be accessible. And that shift is happening now, where those solutions are now. I think everyone's got a little more honest. Here's what it actually is. Here's how it works, and here's how you get into it, and then it's going to deliver real value. And that's what manufacturers are asking for. They don't want to be burned again by a point solution that was hard to integrate. They need a full stack, and that it has to add value. And that shift is happening now. Is sort of like the early adopter phase is over, and now we're into real product phases, which is wonderful.
I appreciate all the fresh, specific perspectives you've brought to the show today, Sean. Is there anything that in this cornucopia of topics we covered today that we didn't cover, or that you wish I would have asked you?
Yeah, reshoring, upskilling, software defined. No, I think we hit them. We hit most of them. Customer success for sure. Yeah. The only thing that's, I think, kind of having a bit of a renaissance right now is design for manufacturing. I think there's also a lot more willingness for manufacturers to reconsider their product design so that they can access the benefits of manufacturing. That's just a general comment, but I'm seeing a lot more focus around design for manufacturing, faster NPI. So it's not just a developer finding cool things to put into the product. It's what can I put in my product so I can make sure I can automate it and be more sustainable. That could be a topic for another day. But that I'm seeing a lot of focus on now, which hadn't been a huge focus for a lot of our manufacturing customers, say 5 years ago.
Well, there's no doubt we could have turned this podcast probably into 4 different podcasts with what we covered. But if I'm looking at our island loggers, they're getting a little low, so it's probably about time to head back to the sandbar for a refill. Sean, what's the best way to connect with you and Bright Machines?
So yeah, Bright Machines, you could reach out to Sean Murray at brightmachines.com. You could always check our website, of course. And There's plenty of ways to reach Bright. Just Google us, you'll find us. But
I love it.
we're on social media too, so you'll find us on Twitter and a variety of other places.
Well, I keep seeing the name pop up more and more. Excited to feature you and Bright here on Manufacturing Happy Hour. And I just want to say, Sean, thanks so much today for jumping on the show.
Yep, it's been a pleasure. Kind of wish I was drinking a beer now, but I can wait. And no, it's a good time. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. Well, hey, mission accomplished then. So with that, cheers.
All right, take it easy.